Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a Licence and Regulatory Subcommittee that's been called to deal with this particular application. My name is Jim Higgins. I'm the chair of this panel this afternoon. To my right is...
Councillor Clement Jahan.
To my left?
And Councillor Linda Guppy.
Ewan Bailey, Solicitor.
Richard Williams, Democratic Services.
Linda O'Gorman, Principal Licensing Officer.
And to my left over here?
Samantha Wynne, Licensing Officer.
Hugh Owen, Principal Environmental Health Officer.
And the gentleman from the police, I take it?
Yeah, I'm PC Andrew Lewis, Licensing Officer for East Side of Quine.
Thank you. And you are, sorry?
George Thompson, the organiser
Yeah, okay.
of the festival.
Thank you. So there's no one? Yeah, this is being live streamed, which means there are people out there who will view the proceedings as they unfold. I've identified everyone. There's no one else. There's no objections. No other objectors here other than the people. No other interested people other than those here. Fine, thank you. Licensing officer.
Okay, Mr Thompson, I'll present the report to outline the facts of why you're actually here today for the temporary event notice application. If you're unsure of anything, by all means stop me as I'm going through sort of the quick overview. What will happen then, you will be then, the objectors have a right to put their views on, and also yourself will have a right to sort of share your views with regards to this notice today. Have you got a copy of the Licensing Act committee procedure in front of you, just so you're aware of the process when we're going to be going through the hearing?
I have a copy of the report.
Have you got the committee procedure? I'll get you one now, just so it makes it easier for you as we're going through the flow. Okay, Mr Thompson, you've been brought here today because as a result of submitting a temporary event notice for an event at Cwmceo Farm, Gwahilog, Usk, and that is was submitted to the licensing authority on the 15th of May and is for an event that will commence on the 1st of June and end on the 5th of June. Within that notice, you've requested the sale of alcohol. I think it was late night refreshment and regulated entertainment. The sale of alcohol were on the 2nd and the 3rd of June. It's for 0200 hours. And the actual performance of music then on the 2nd and 3rd of June was to 0300 hours. And then on the 4th of June, it was 2400 hours. I notice there's an error actually on the report. It's got April and May, but that should be June because it commences 1st of June to the 5th of June there. Attached to the report, which you've had copy of prior to today, can confirm you've had a copy of the full report. Yeah, okay. Attached to the report is a number of appendices. The first appendix is in fact the actual temporary event notice itself that you submitted. The Appendix B is a plan of the location, a map of the location that is to assist members to know where the actual location of your temporary event notice is going to take place. But also attached to the report in Appendix C is a detailed event management plan, an event safety risk assessment, triplicity noise management plan and triplicity noise survey. And with a sound check map as well, which the members have had sight of and you're aware of what Appendix C is about. Okay, I won't go into that noise management plan. I'm sure once the noise nuisance sort of is put forward to the members, that will be highlighted with relation to the noise management plan, but everybody's had sight of that. Okay. With the objection, Environmental Health objected. We had 3 working days basically in order to submit an objection to your temporary event notice. This was carried out and we received an objection from Environmental Health with regards to noise nuisance. The results of the noise nuisance complaint is in 3.5 of the report. I won't go into too much details on that, but it's actually, which will be highlighted now when the questions is asked on that. But all members are aware of the actual nuisance, which is in 3.5 of the report. You was given an opportunity then to respond to that, which is also within the report under 3.4. I think there was some confusion as well then to further clarify that. So there's another email that was submitted to yourself in 3.5 of the report where Environmental Health clarified that with yourself as to what was expected. And what they basically said that they would like to see is that obviously the finish time of 0300 was too late, they felt. And the crux of this report is because of the noise nuisance at that finishing time. It was, and then the proposal was that after 2300 hours that the reduction be done to the event itself. You then responded to that, requesting further clarification in 3.5 of this report. 3.6 basically is what was the final response from Environmental Health, which I will read out. The crucial factor in this application from an environmental health or a noise control perspective is the finish times. Secondly is that the location is extremely rural in nature, so the later or into the night the event goes, the quieter the background levels will become, and therefore the more difficult it would be for you to adhere to the noise level set in the guidance issued. It was further stated that it would be happy if the music finished at midnight and there was no amplified music after 2300 hours. So that was the final proposal from Environmental Health. With regards to a temporary event notice, you can in fact modify the original notice up until the hearing, which is today. There was no modification taken place by yourself or with Environmental Health agreeing to a modification of the original notice. So the notice still stands at being sort of at a 3 o'clock finish as per 3.1 of this report. Okay, so that's the reason why you're here today with the hearing, for members to decide either to grant the notice as it is entirety as it stands or to refuse the notice. There's no ability to reduce the times, okay, at this stage, just so you're aware of that. Okay, so that's the main outline of the report. What will happen now, you will, the applicant, you will be able to present your views with regards to why you didn't modify it and why you're here today, okay, with regards to your event.
Okay, well, thank you all for taking the time to come and discuss this today. And I'm sure you've read the correspondence and we've just been through what myself and the Environmental Health have discussed. If we just go over everything from my point of view quickly, you can see that our initial application fell in line with noise management plans that I have used successfully for years and years and years. And we initially proposed a 4 AM finish and extremely low levels. Miss Lawton disagreed with the levels and the time, so we brought it right back. The daytimes regulations she's proposing are actually 5 dB under the guidance given in the Code of Practice on Environmental Noise Control. And the nighttime levels are in guidance with that now. But we moved to fall in line with her without any objection. We agreed with the guidance that was given. She made this very clear in her correspondence that she made the guidance and we fell in line with her guidance. Yet she still felt after this that an objection was needed to be made, even though we'd followed her instructions exactly as she wished. I feel that her objections are based on that of previous events who did not follow the guidance that was given by her. They did not adhere to their noise management restrictions, and we shouldn't be punished because of other people's actions. The levels she's proposing that we have after 11 PM are basically inaudible inside the nearest properties. So this is why I'm proposing a 3 AM finish you shouldn't be able to hear it anyway. So whether it finishes at midnight, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, the level of the music will be so quiet, it shouldn't matter how late it goes on. Other festivals in the UK go on till 5, 6 a.m. Some run 24 hours, also in very rural locations with neighbours. But with proper sound management, these continue to happen year in, year out with minimum complaints and no public nuisance being caused. We've agreed to comply with all the regulations that were initially set by Miss Lawton, but she has put in an objection. We've done accurate sound readings. We've taken the sound system up to the site and gained predictions off-site. This has given a clear idea of what levels we can run at during the event. Provided acoustic predictions for her, provided everything that's been asked. And I feel that we've gone above and beyond what's really needed in terms of our noise management, and we will stick to it. I was prepared to meet further, but I feel that a proposed time of 2,300 hours is too early for the nature of this kind of event. Especially as we have stated, we will strictly stick to our noise management plan.
Mr Thompson, obviously the next stage of the committee procedure would be that the responsible authority who's made the objection will give their views. Okay, you will then have a right to respond to those views, and then the summing up will take place then as in accordance with the committee procedure.
Mr Hugh Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Thompson. Thank you, Linda. Members, in a nutshell, the concerns from environmental health are the potential for significant disturbance to be caused from house dance music proposed, played until 3 a.m. on consecutive nights in the open air in a rural community. And that, in our view, that's got the potential to cause significant disturbance. In a rural area, background levels, particularly late at night, can be extremely low, particularly if it's a dry night and there's no wind, for example. We've got a history of complaints from festivals at this site in the last 2 years, albeit from different event organisers. A 3-day event in September 2015 with a 2 a.m. finish on Fridays and Saturdays and a 10:30 a.m. finish and a 10:30 p.m. finish on a Sunday. We had 4 complaints. From a 3-day event in May 2016, we had 14 complaints. The application before us is from a different event promoter. But I highlight this history to show that there's clearly a potential for noise disturbance from events held in the open air until late into the night. On consecutive nights, especially with music that entails more emphasis on bass beat than typical pop music. The music finish times in this particular application is later than the two previous festivals, albeit from a different organiser. I have circulated, I believe Linda's circulated, just to help you put this in context, site layout showing some of the nearest residential properties in the area and the distances, the approximate distances from the main stage proposed. And there are a number of residential properties within typically 400 to 500 metres of the main stage. Mr Thompson has indicated in his noise management plan that he would adhere to our guidance limits. So first of all, perhaps just to clarify what our guidance limits are. The guidance we give organisers is based on a document called the Code of Practice on Environmental Noise Control at Concerts. During daytime, in recognition that this is a multi-day event and therefore residents' tolerance is more greatly tested than for single-day events, our guidance limit is a limit of 55 decibels at the boundary of dwelling should not be exceeded. This is working on permitting a maximum of 10 decibels above a typical background area in the daytime for a rural area. And this is for music before 11 o'clock at night. After 11 p.m, our guidance is that music should not be audible in a dwelling with windows open in a typical manner for ventilation. The issue of inaudibility is obviously open to argument. So we have tried to quantify it by advising that music should not be in excess of 5 decibels at the boundary of nearby dwellings. The applicant, Mr Thompson, as he's quite rightly said, in their noise management plan, have advised us that we will meet these guidance limits. So the question is obviously, why have we objected? The reasons are fairly simple. To meet a post-11 p.m. guidance, it would mean that music in the audience area could potentially have to be very low, and as low as 70 decibels. To give you an idea, 60 decibels approximately could be the sort of sound in a busy restaurant. 70 decibels has been given as quoted as a vacuum cleaner within 1 metre. 80 decibels curbside of a busy road at 5 metres. So perhaps to give you an idea of when we talk about potentially we could expect a level as low as 70 decibels in the audience area in order to meet our criteria after 11 o'clock at night for the music to be inaudible inside nearby dwellings. We're concerned that this will not meet the expectation of the customers invited, and in effect renders the site not fit for purpose for an event of this nature. Our guidance is simply that our legislative remit, if not complied with, is to serve a noise abatement notice if we feel that a statutory nuisance is being caused on a Friday or Saturday night, or indeed on a Sunday night. But the burden of proof is on us to demonstrate a substantial interference or disturbance exists, as opposed to just demonstrating non-compliance with guidance. Where there is non-compliance with an abatement notice, if served, the recourse is for us to prosecute, albeit after the event. During the event, if an abatement notice was not complied with, we could actually invoke powers to try and seize the equipment. But obviously no authority wants to go to that sort of length with hundreds of people in attendance. Residents in the area are already sensitised, and I suggest that there will be concerns that an event proposed with a later finish time, an event subject to complaints last year, and concern is greater because this is a multi-day event with potentially a total of 46 hours of music over the 3 days, with 9 of these hours of music after 11 o'clock at night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Do you have any questions of Mr. Owen's presentation, please?
No questions. A few thoughts about a few things though, if I can share those. So we've already further reduced by 1 night. So would only be 6 hours of music after 11 p.m. Is that correct? But we've already removed Thursday night as well, so it's not 4 days consecutively. Again, in line with the guidance. And I was up at the site last night at 11 p.m. with a dB meter, and rural night time with a light breeze and no rain was 28 dB. So we could run, with our calculations, at 77 dB on stage, which we feel is appropriate for this nature of event. I think that would provide crowd satisfaction. It's obviously not the same level as a rock concert, but it is still a good nighttime level for music to be listened to and enjoyed.
Thank you, Chair. It's, by my calculation, I think it's 9 hours. So if on a Friday night is until 3 o'clock, so that's 4 hours after 11. On a Saturday, 4 hours after 11, and midnight on the Sunday. On the Sunday night. So it's a substantial period after 11 o'clock at night. And why are we concerned about 11 o'clock at night? That's typically because those are the sort of hours that people want to go to bed and have relative silence. And we are concerned that there is the potential for, in particular, the bass beat of the music to be clearly audible, which is why we received complaints from an event last year, an event which I should say also indicated that they would comply with our guidance. Complaints on that occasion were from several miles away from the actual venue. And the only reason why I highlight that is that we all know that in the open air, outside, late at night, in a rural area, there is a potential for music to travel great distances. The onus would be on us, not only to prove that the guidance, because it is purely and simply that its guidance wasn't met, but if we had complaints, it would be to decide, well, is a statutory nuisance being caused? So the burden of proof is a lot greater on us to prove that. In other words, that there's such a major interference with the reasonable enjoyment of somebody's home, that we were prepared to prosecute the applicant if they breach an abatement notice. So again, our concerns are that music that is typically played at concerts are a lot higher than the proposed 70 or 80 decibels at this particular site. And the controls we have, if the noise management plan is not kept, are not great, other than to take legal action if we prove a statutory nuisance. So in effect, guidance is just that, just purely guidance.
Do you have any other questions, please?
No, I think we've covered it. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I can just point out a clarification before, obviously because it is live streaming, can you confirm that you had sight of the map that was the extra information that was brought in by Hugh Owen, the Environmental Health Officer, today?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and also with regards to the report, I mentioned the reasons why you brought you, but it's the legal side of it under the Licensing Act and under the reasons section of item 4, which refers also to the licensing policy of Monmouthshire County Council and the legislation itself, that you've had sight of that report as well before coming today.
Thank you. Police officer, would you like to give your...
Gwen, please had no objection to the application, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel? Councillor Guppy.
Yeah. Just with the application form, on page 27, there were some changes to the timing of selling of alcohol, and they are the ones in the main body. If you could sort of answer that in the beginning of the report. On page 27, you've got actually, it's the wrong dates and the wrong times. It's May 1st, 2nd and 3rd of May 2015 between 12 and 4 o'clock and 4 o'clock on the 2nd and between 12 and 00 hours.
If I can
So I've just asked that the times, yeah, go on, yeah.
If I can clarify, the decision that's being made today is on the actual notice itself, which is Appendix A. So the actual timings and the request for the timings, even though in the report there was an error I pointed out on 3.1, it should have said June, but the decision that will be made is actually on the notice which is attached to the report as Appendix A today.
Yeah, okay. And I just want to ask, why have you decided to put this in as a late application form in view of the time needed for reports to be circulated? I think you submitted it on the 13th of May.
We've had several issues come up this year. We had an original site near Stroud, which fell through. The council were on board, the landowner was on board, the estate management was on board, but one of the trustees of the estate there turned around and said no, they didn't want it to happen there, and that no was final. So we found this venue relatively last minute for something that I've been organising for the last 8 months, and we put in a full premises application, but there was an error in that application, so reduced our numbers to put in a temporary events notice.
If I can clarify, the actual the reason why the premises licence under the Licensing Act could not be processed was due to the time scales. There wasn't enough time for the actual consultation period, so the only option you had was a temporary event notice. Okay.
Sorry, Jim. And with viewer consultation, what have you done publicly and locally to advertise this and get the opinions of
With
the
regards
resident?
With regards to a temporary event notice, there's no requirement in the legislation for the gentleman to advertise it. It's a case of once the notice is submitted to the licensing authority, a copy has to be sent to Environmental Health and the police only, and it's only them that can object to the notice because it is a notice of intention and it is reduced then to 499 persons and below.
But sort of knowing that, have you done anything about it? Have you inquired locally?
Yes, we have. There's been a notice with our residents' complaint phone number in there, posted to local churches and parishes and local magazines. And after this hearing today, all local properties will be flyed as well with a number so they can contact us directly with any complaints, and our noise management team can go out there and take readings and deal with it, so that if anything does happen, nothing has to come to you. We can deal with it all ourselves.
Thank you.
No other questions? At all? Thank you. If there are no other representations, could I invite you to summarise your objections, please?
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I should perhaps advise is that we do try and work with event organisers as a rule, and we try to give a benefit of the doubt, and wherever we can, not object to events. The difficulty for our officers in this case is that last year we had a number of complaints, albeit again from a different event. And we would certainly be open to concern being raised with us again from residents if they were disturbed again to say, well, we previously complained about this sort of thing. So that's the difficulty that we had. Prior to the hearing, we obviously requested by the licensing department as to what we would accept as an activity or as a festival on this site. And we indicated that we would be happy with the festival proceeding as long as the amplified music finished at 11 o'clock at night, bearing in mind that a multi-day event is proposed. In a nutshell, our concerns are that very late night finishes are proposed, in particular on 2 nights. It's a rural community and there's a potential for significant disturbance to be caused if the guidance that we give is not followed.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Guppy's got another question she'd like to ask.
Yes, sorry, I'm just scrolling down. And we've got new computers and I can't highlight it, so I do apologise. Just clarification, really, of the numbers you're expecting, because the numbers in the report, I think it's 1,500 tickets that you're offering for sale, plus, well, the numbers will not exceed 1,900, but I'm not quite sure. 1,500, 120, 100 artists, 150 guests, 50 vendors. That's nearly 4 times greater than this licence allows. Could you explain, please?
Yes, we have drastically cut our numbers since that original event management plan due to the licence application coming in too late. And because of the late news about location, our numbers are significantly lower. So there's less traders, less artists, less people.
Sorry, could you explain exactly what less means? Be more specific.
In terms of numbers?
In terms of numbers, I think currently we've sold 350 tickets. There'll be 81 artists, and then the rest is the crew, is the stewards and security.
If I can clarify the point of law with regards to a temporary event notice, the figure is at any people at any one time. So it would include those who are actually working at the premises as well as those who are customers, sort of patrons. The other thing I want to point out on a point of law as well, I know Mr. Owen, he mentioned about decibels and putting conditions on the licence. Well, there is no facility within a temporary event notice to put conditions on a temporary event notice unless there's actually a premises licence held there as well, and that isn't the case in this instance, so there is no facility to put conditions on the temporary event notice.
Any further questions? No. In which case, would you like to sum up your case, please?
I feel that the objection is strongly based on negative experience from past events, who did not adhere to their noise management plan. They didn't have a resident complaint line on all weekend, and from what I've heard from investigating this myself is they completely ignored any sound guidance given by the council. Their speaker direction was different, they played it full volume all the time, and we are not this previous event. We have a track record of providing decent sound management with our events, and we feel that we shouldn't be punished due to previous events' behaviours. Further, that we have taken all the appropriate measures and gone beyond. Reduced the length of amplified music by one night, further reduced by 1 hour each night, reduced our daytime and nighttime levels significantly, carried out predictions on and off site, added extra monitoring time, so we'll have our crew monitoring around the area a lot of times each day. I feel there's not really anything more we can do to show that we are willing and committed to actually run our noise management properly.
Thank you. I think we need to retire and discuss this application, and we'll go to one of the rooms on the side.
So we adjourn for a short while now, so we can discuss this out, okay?
If I can confirm as well, we're still in live streaming until the members come back. Okay.
Yes, thank you. We had to make our deliberations and take in absolutely everything that was within the presentation to us. And we have come to a decision. I would ask our solicitor to read out our decision.
Subcommittee have considered your application for temporary event notice at the Triplicity Festival at a field in Cwmcael Farm, Gwelhelog, Usk. We have heard representations from Hugh Owen, Monmouthshire County Council Environmental Health Officer, and yourself. In reaching a decision, we have had regard to the Licensing Act 2003, the licensing objectives, the Council Statement of Licensing Policy, and guidance issued by the Home Office. In taking into account all the above matters, any other relevant legislation, for example Human Rights Act 1998, and all the relevant circumstances of the application, after discussion, it was felt that because we have major concerns that the decibel level, as stated in the application, would cause a public nuisance at such a late hour, we have decided to reject the application. It will be notified in writing of the appeals procedure within the counter notice. Thank you.
So thank you for making the application. Thanks to the police officer and Mr. Owen for your attendance here in presenting your case as well. And this appeal is now, you've had a decision and we now finished. Thank you very much.
Okay, a counter notice will be issued with the effect of the hearing, and you stating the right of appeal. Okay.